What if you could stop time anytime you wanted? No consequences, no witnesses, no limits. At first, it wouldn't feel dangerous. It would feel like control, like finally, the world was moving at your pace, not the other way around. Because every day before that moment, you were already losing, not in a dramatic way, not in a way anyone would notice, but in small, quiet ways that slowly pile up. Late alarms, missed messages, deadlines that felt just slightly too close, people expecting more from you than you could give. And no matter how fast you moved, it was never enough. That morning was no different, except everything felt heavier. The air, the noise, even your own thoughts. You were late. Again, not just late, but late enough to feel it in your chest. That tight sinking pressure, the kind that doesn't go away even if you run. Cars honked behind you, too loud, too sharp. A cyclist brushed past your shoulder, muttering something you didn't catch. Didn't need to. You already knew the tone. Annoyed. Everyone was always slightly annoyed. Your phone buzzed in your hand. You didn't look. You didn't have to. You already knew. Another message, another reminder, another piece of pressure, and suddenly, it was all too much, too loud, too fast, too constant. Your thoughts overlapped, your breathing shortened, your chest tightened, and for a split second, you wished, not for things to get better, not for things to slow down, but for everything to just stop. Just stop. You didn't shout it. You barely even said it. More like a thought that slipped out. And somehow, the world listened. Everything did. Instantly. No warning. No transition. Just silence. Not the kind of silence you hear at night. Not the peaceful kind. This was absolute. Total. Like sound itself had been erased. Then motion followed. A man in front of you froze mid-step, his foot hovering just above the pavement, never landing. A bird hung in the air above the street, wings stretched wide, but unmoving. Even the wind disappeared. A plastic bag that had been drifting moments ago now hung lifeless in midair, like reality had been paused, like someone had pressed a button and forgotten to press it again. You stood there, breathing, your heartbeat suddenly loud enough to feel, each pulse echoing inside your head. You looked around slowly, waiting for something, anything, to move. Nothing did. The world had become a photograph, perfectly still, perfectly wrong. You took a step forward. Your shoe hit the ground, and the sound echoed, too clearly, too loudly, in a world that shouldn't have any sound at all. You froze, listened. Nothing responded. No reaction, no consequence. Just you, alone, inside a frozen moment. Carefully, you reached out your hand, touched the man standing beside you. His skin was cold, not like ice, but like something that had stopped being warm, stopped being alive, but wasn't dead either, just paused. You pulled your hand back, your breath shaky now. This isn't real, you whispered, but even your own voice sounded unfamiliar, like it didn't belong here, because maybe you didn't either. You took another step, then another, walking through people like statues, through a world that no longer reacted to you. and something strange began to grow inside you. Not fear, not yet. Something else, something lighter, something dangerous, relief. Because for the first time, nothing was chasing you. No time, no pressure, no expectations. Everything had stopped, and somehow you hadn't. At first, it felt like a miracle you didn't deserve. At first, you didn't trust it. How could you? The world doesn't just stop. Not like that. Not because you asked it to. So you tested it, carefully, almost cautiously, like you were afraid the ability might disappear if you pushed it too far. You whispered again. Stop. Silence. Instant. Perfect. The same frozen world, exactly like before. No delay, no resistance. You let it resume. Everything snapped back. A car horn blared mid-sound. The man's foot hit the ground. The bird continued its flight as if nothing had happened. No one noticed. No one reacted. It was seamless. Too seamless. You tried again and again, each time more confident, more certain. This wasn't luck. This wasn't a one-time accident. This was yours. At first you used it for small things, harmless things. You paused time just to cross the street safely. No rushing, no pressure. You paused to check your phone before replying, reading messages without the anxiety of time ticking forward. You paused to avoid awkward eye contact, to step out of conversations you didn't want to have. Little things, insignificant things, things no one would ever know. And that was the problem. No one would ever know, because nothing you did inside frozen time stayed. The moment you resumed, everything continued exactly as it should. Words picked up mid-sentence. Movements continued mid-motion. Reality stitched itself back together perfectly, like your interference had never existed. No consequences, no witnesses, no memory. You started to smile more, not because life got better, but because you had found a way around it, around mistakes, around embarrassment, around discomfort. And slowly, without realizing it, you stopped living in time and started editing it. You paused during conversations, walking around people, studying their faces frozen mid-expression. You adjusted your responses, rehearsed your tone, perfected your words before they were even spoken. Every interaction became controlled, curated, flawless. You became better, or at least that's what it felt like, until something changed. It was small, so small you almost ignored it. The third day, you paused time like usual, walked, thought, adjusted something trivial. Then you let it resume, and for a fraction of a second, nothing happened. Not even a full second. Less, a flicker, like reality hesitated, like it needed a moment to remember what it was doing. Then everything snapped back. Normal. Perfect. But your mind didn't let it go. You stood there longer than you should have, watching, waiting, for it to happen again. It didn't. So you told yourself it was nothing. A delay, a glitch, your imagination. But deep down, something had shifted, because perfection doesn't lag. And this was supposed to be perfect. Still, you kept using it. More often now, more casually, less hesitation. It became a reflex, like blinking, like breathing. You didn't think before using it anymore. You just did. Moments stretched longer. You stayed inside frozen time not just for seconds, but minutes. Then longer. You stopped counting because time didn't exist there anyway. Why would it? You walked through empty streets, sat inside cafes where no one moved, watched steam freeze midair above a cup of coffee. You wandered through traffic, cars frozen inches apart, people caught mid-step, mid-word, mid-life. The world became something else, not a place, a display, a museum of moments, and you were the only visitor, the only one allowed to touch, to move, to exist. At first, it felt like freedom. No deadlines, no expectations, no consequences. You could go anywhere, do anything, take anything. No one would stop you. No one could, because to them, none of it ever happened. And yet, something slowly began to change. Not outside, inside, the silence. At first it was peaceful. Then it became noticeable. Then it became heavy. Because silence, when it stretches too far, stops feeling like peace and starts feeling like absence. You began to hear things, not sounds, not exactly, more like the lack of sound becoming louder, pressing against your ears, filling the space where life should be. You tried talking, just to break it. Your voice echoed, too clearly, too empty, like the world wasn't absorbing it anymore, like it had nowhere to go. You laughed once, just to feel something. The sound came out wrong, flat, disconnected, and for the first time, a thought crossed your mind. What if I stay too long? You didn't like that thought, so you ignored it, used the power again and again. But now, you weren't just using it to fix things. You were using it to escape. Escape noise, escape people, escape time itself. And the more you escaped, the harder it became to come back, because normal time started to feel wrong, too fast, too loud, too uncontrollable. You found yourself wanting to pause it more often, not because you needed to, but because you preferred it, preferred the stillness, the control, the emptiness, and that's when it stopped being a power and started becoming something else, something quieter, something deeper, something dangerous, an addiction. And like all addictions, the first real sign wasn't the pleasure. It was the moment something broke. You paused time again. Nothing unusual. Everything froze. You walked, observed, thought. Then you stopped. Because something felt off, not different, not obvious, just wrong, like a detail your brain couldn't process, but refused to ignore. You turned your head slowly, scanning the street. Everything looked the same, exactly the same, frozen, silent, perfect. And yet, your body didn't relax. Your chest tightened. Your breath slowed. Instinct. Something was there. You just couldn't see it yet. And then, at the very edge of your vision, something moved. You didn't breathe, not fully, not after that, because your body knew something your mind hadn't caught up to yet. Something moved. Not imagination, not a trick of light. Movement. Inside a world where movement should not exist. You turned slowly, carefully, like moving too fast might trigger something. But when you looked directly at where it should have been, nothing. The street was exactly the same. Frozen people, frozen air, frozen everything. Perfect, still, safe. But your heart didn't believe it, because your heart had seen it, even if your eyes hadn't. You stood there longer than you should have, waiting, listening, trying to prove to yourself it wasn't real. Seconds passed, or minutes. There was no way to tell anymore, because time didn't exist here. Only you did, and whatever else might be here with you. You forced yourself to move again. One step, then another. Your footsteps echoed unnaturally loud in the silence, each sound bouncing too far, too clean, like the world had become hollow. You scanned everything now, every corner, every reflection, every shadow, and that's when you noticed it. The silence wasn't empty. It was layered, like there was something underneath it, something so quiet. It only existed when everything else disappeared. You held your breath and focused. At first, nothing. Then, a sound, faint, so faint it almost didn't exist. A low vibration, not coming from a direction, not left, not right, not behind you, everywhere, like the space around you was humming, not loud, not aggressive, just present, constant, watching. You turned slowly, trying to locate it, but it didn't change, didn't shift, didn't react, because it wasn't coming from somewhere. It was coming from here, from this place, from whatever this place really was. Your throat felt dry. This wasn't part of it. You whispered. Your voice sounded small, too small, like it didn't belong in this space. You took a step backward, and the sound changed, not louder, but closer, clearer, aware. You froze, and for the first time since you gained the ability, you didn't feel in control. You felt observed. You turned your head, slowly, carefully, and that's when you saw it, far down the street, at the end of the road, where nothing had been before. A figure, standing still, but not like everything else, not frozen mid-action, not paused, just standing, as if it had always been there, as if you had only just unlocked the ability to see it. Your chest tightened, your fingers twitched slightly. You didn't want to move, but you couldn't stay still either, because now you knew you weren't alone here. You took a cautious step forward. The sound shifted again, not louder, sharper, more defined, like static turning into a signal. The figure didn't move, not yet, but something about it felt wrong, not human, not completely. You took another step, and this time it reacted just slightly, a twitch, a small unnatural shift, like a glitch in a video, too fast to fully see, too real to ignore. You stopped instantly, your breath caught, your entire body locked, because now there was no denying it. It could move. Here, inside stopped time. Your mind raced. What is that? No answer, only that low vibration, steady, watching. You took one more step, slow, careful, and then the figure vanished. Not ran, not faded, not dissolved. Gone instantly, like it had never existed. Like reality corrected itself. Silence returned, flat, empty, normal. But you weren't normal anymore. You stood there for a long time, too long, trying to process what you saw, trying to find a logical explanation. There wasn't one, because logic doesn't account for things that aren't supposed to exist. And whatever that was, did exist. You resumed time, hard, almost desperately. The world snapped back. Sound exploded into your ears. Cars, voices, wind, everything rushed back at once. Too fast, too loud. You staggered slightly, breathing hard, alive, back, safe, right. You looked around. People moved normally. No one noticed anything. No one reacted. No one knew. Of course they didn't. They never do. But something stayed with you. Not physically, not visibly, but mentally, like a shadow in your thoughts. Because now you knew something you weren't supposed to know. Stopped time. Wasn't empty. And whatever lived there had noticed you too. That night, you tried not to use it. You really did. You told yourself it wasn't worth it, that it was dangerous, that you should stop. But the silence called to you, not loudly, not directly, just waiting, because now normal time felt wrong, incomplete, like something was missing, like you had seen behind the curtain and couldn't forget it. You lasted longer than you expected. Hours, maybe, before. Stop. Silence. Again. And this time, you didn't explore. You didn't move. You just stood there, listening, waiting, and deep down, you already knew. You weren't checking if it was there. You were waiting for it to come back. The second time you saw it, it wasn't far away anymore. You didn't even have to look for it, because the moment time stopped, you felt it. That same low vibration, that same presence. Closer now, aware. You stood completely still, not moving, not even daring to breathe too loudly, because something had changed. Before, you were exploring. Now, you were being watched. You turned your head slowly, and there it was, not at the end of the street this time. Closer, much closer, standing between two frozen people, blending in, but not really, because everything else was paused, and it wasn't. It didn't move like a human, didn't stand like one either. Its shape was unstable, like it didn't fully belong to reality, edges slightly distorted, like a signal that couldn't fully load. You stared at it, and for a moment, it didn't react, just existed, observing you, the same way you had been observing the world. Then, its head tilted, too slowly, too deliberately, and your chest tightened instantly, because that movement was intentional. It knew you were there. It had always known. You stepped back, just one step, and the sound shifted again, sharper now, almost like a frequency locking onto you. Your thoughts started racing. This isn't part of the ability. This isn't supposed to happen. You tried to stay calm, tried to think logically, but logic was already breaking, because if something else could exist here, then this place wasn't yours. You weren't controlling time. You were entering something that already existed. You resumed time immediately. The world snapped back. People moved. Voices returned. Everything normal again. But your body didn't calm down, because your mind was already ahead, connecting things, realizing patterns, that delay before, that strange silence, that feeling of being watched. It wasn't random, it was building, and so were you, because now something else started happening, not when time was stopped, but when it wasn't. At first it was subtle, so subtle you almost ignored it. Your reflection. Again, you passed by a window, caught a glimpse of yourself, and something felt off. You stopped walking, turned back, looked directly at it. Your reflection looked back, normal, perfect. But then you blinked, and it didn't. Not immediately. A fraction of a second later, it followed. You froze. Your stomach dropped. That's not possible. You leaned closer. Your reflection leaned closer, but not perfectly synchronized. Not naturally, like it was copying you. Instead of being you, you stepped back. Your heart beating faster now. You tried to laugh it off, tried to convince yourself it was just your mind. Too much stress, too much thinking. But deep down, you knew. This started when you started using it too much, and it wasn't stopping, because outside, people began reacting differently too. Not dramatically, not enough to call out, but enough to notice. Small hesitations, tiny delays. You'd speak, and they'd pause, just for a split second, like your voice arrived late, like your presence wasn't fully there yet. You saw it in their eyes, confusion, discomfort, but they couldn't explain it, and neither could you, because how do you explain that you're no longer fully inside time? You started testing it, not the power, yourself. You moved your hand slowly, watched it carefully, for any delay, any desync. At first, nothing. Then, there it was, just slightly. Your movement felt behind, like your body was catching up to you, not moving with you. Your breathing changed, shallow now, controlled, because something inside you understood before your mind accepted it. You were slipping, not out of control, out of alignment, like a video slightly out of sync with its audio, close enough to function, wrong enough to notice, and then it got worse. You paused time again, not because you wanted to, because you needed to know. Everything froze. Silence returned, heavy, immediate, and this time, you didn't look for it. You didn't search, because you already knew it would find you, and it did. Right behind you, you felt it before you saw it. That vibration, now sharp, focused, close, too close. You turned, and it was there, closer than ever before. Its shape clearer now, not human, not solid, like something trying to imitate form, but failing, and around it, you noticed something new. Other people, but not frozen, not like before. They were moving, slowly, unnaturally, like broken frames of motion, their eyes empty, their movements delayed, like they had forgotten how to exist. Your breath caught, because you understood instantly. They weren't supposed to be moving, not here, not in stop time, unless they were like you, or what you were becoming. One of them turned its head toward you, too slowly, too late. Its eyes met yours, and there was nothing inside them. No fear, no thought, no self, just absence. And in that moment, you realized something terrifying. They didn't just get stuck. They stayed too long, used it too much, drifted too far. And now, they weren't fully human anymore. The thing behind you shifted, and the others reacted, not by running, not by fighting. They dimmed, slightly, like their existence weakened just by being near it, and your body finally understood what your mind was refusing to accept. This wasn't a power. This was a system, and you were inside it. You didn't move, not immediately, because moving meant accepting it, and accepting it meant there was no going back to how you understood the world before. The thing behind you didn't rush, didn't attack, didn't need to, because it wasn't hunting you, not like a predator, not like something desperate. It was patient, certain, like it had done this before. Many times, you could feel it now, that pull, subtle but real, like something gently tugging at you from the inside. Not your body, something deeper, something harder to define, your presence, your weight in reality. You looked down at your hands. They looked normal, but they didn't feel normal. Lighter, less solid, like you weren't fully anchored anymore, like part of you was already somewhere else. You stepped back slowly. The ground felt delayed beneath your feet, not quite matching your movement, and that's when it clicked. Not all at once, but enough to terrify you. You didn't stop time. You stepped out of it. Every single time. Each pause wasn't control. It was distance, like taking one step away from reality. Again, and again, and again. And the more you did it, the further you drifted, until eventually there wasn't enough of you left inside time. To return, you looked at the others, the ones wandering, the ones barely existing. They weren't victims, not completely. They were the result of the same choice. Over and over and over again. Stay longer, use it more, escape a little further, until escape became exile. The entity shifted again, closer now, its form flickering slightly, like it wasn't fully stable either. But unlike you, it wasn't fading. It was feeding. You saw it clearly now, not with your eyes, but with something deeper. Every time it moved near one of them, they dimmed, not physically, existentially, like something was being removed. Not energy, not life, but identity, presence, the thing that makes someone. And in return, it became clearer, more defined, more real. Your throat tightened, because now you understood the system perfectly. This place wasn't an accident. It wasn't a bug. It was a layer, a hidden layer of reality, where everything that slips out of time ends up. And that thing was part of it. A collector, a stabilizer, a consequence. Every time someone stepped outside time, they created imbalance, and something had to correct it. Not immediately, not violently, just inevitably. You felt the pull again, stronger now. That thread, faint, almost gone, but still there, somewhere, behind you. Not physically, but directionally, like memory, like gravity, calling you back, your way out, your last connection to time. You didn't know how long it would last. You didn't know if it would hold. But you knew one thing. If you stayed any longer, you wouldn't be able to follow it ever again. You looked at the others, really looked this time. Their slow movements, their empty eyes, their fading presence. This wasn't survival. This was after choice, after control, after time. You looked at your hands again. They were worse now. edges slightly unstable, like static, like you were already starting to break apart. Your thoughts raced, fast, desperate. Two choices: stay, let go, become like them. No fear, no pressure, no time, but no self either. Or risk it. Follow the thread, even if it snapped, even if you disappeared completely, even if this was already too late. The entity moved again, closer, and this time you felt it touch you, not physically, but directly, like something brushing against your existence. And for a split second, everything inside you felt weaker, lighter, less real. You gasped, fell to one knee, and that was enough. Decision made, not by logic, not by courage, by instinct. You weren't ready to disappear, not like this. You closed your eyes, focused, ignored the thing, ignored the others, ignored the silence, and searched for that thread, that faint pull, that last connection. You found it, barely, thin as breath, fragile, fading, but real. You grabbed onto it, not with your hands, with your will, and pulled. The world resisted, not violently, but heavily, like moving against something thick, dense. You pulled harder, your thoughts breaking, your sense of self flickering. The entity reacted. For the first time, it moved fast. The vibration spiked, sharp, aggressive, focused entirely on you, because now you weren't drifting anymore. You were leaving, and it didn't like that. You pulled again, harder. Everything around you distorted. The others flickered. The space bent. The silence cracked. And then everything snapped. Sound came back first, violent, overwhelming, like the world had been waiting to crash into you all at once. Car horns, engines, voices, wind, all of it hit you at the same time. Too loud, too real. You collapsed onto the pavement, your hands shaking, your lungs burning as you gasped for air. Alive. You were alive. Time was moving. People were walking past you, talking, laughing, existing. Normal. Everything was normal. Exactly how it was supposed to be. You pressed your hands against the ground. Solid. Real. Not delayed. Not distorted. You let out a breath you didn't realize you were holding. A broken laugh escaped your throat. You made it. You actually made it back. For a moment, everything felt distant. Not wrong, just fragile. Like reality could crack again if you pushed it too hard. You stood up slowly, your legs weak, your body heavy again. Properly heavy, like gravity had finally claimed you back. People brushed past you. No one stopped. No one noticed. Of course they didn't. To them, nothing had happened. No missing time. No glitch. No absence. Because you were back inside the system. Properly. Seamlessly. Like you never left. You looked around. Carefully this time, watching faces, movements, listening to the rhythm of the world. Everything flowed, naturally. No delay, no distortion, no sign of anything wrong. You checked your reflection, a store window. Your face stared back, perfectly synchronized. You blinked. It blinked, instantly. No delay, no lag. You exhaled slowly. Relief. Real relief this time. Maybe it was over. Maybe you got lucky. Maybe. You won. You started walking, blending back into the crowd, letting the noise surround you, letting time carry you forward again. Step by step, everything felt normal, almost too normal, until you felt it. That same sensation, faint but unmistakable. Not a pull, not anymore. Something else, a presence. You slowed down, your heart rate rising again. Not fast, just enough, because your body remembered before your mind did. You didn't want to look, but you did. Across the street, people moved normally, crossing, talking, living. Nothing unusual, except one person, a man, standing completely still, perfectly still, in a world that was moving, not frozen like before, not paused, just not participating. Your breath caught, because something about it felt familiar, too familiar. You stared, trying to understand, trying to deny it. Maybe he's just waiting. Maybe he's on his phone. Maybe slowly, very slowly, his head turned, not naturally, not smoothly, but with that same slight delay, that same wrongness. And then his eyes locked onto yours, not confused, not empty, aware, recognizing. Your chest tightened instantly, because in that moment, you understood. He wasn't stuck. He wasn't frozen. He was looking at you, the same way you once looked at everything else, from slightly outside, and then you felt it, not around you, inside you, something small, something faint, a whisper of that same silence, still there, still connected. You hadn't fully returned, not completely. A part of you was still on the other side, and maybe that's all it takes. You looked away, quickly, your breathing unstable now. You didn't want to see him anymore, didn't want to confirm it, didn't want to know, because if he could see you, then something else could too. You kept walking, faster now, blending into the crowd, trying to lose the feeling, trying to disappear back into normal life, but deep down, you already knew you escaped, but not cleanly, not completely, because once you step outside time, even once, something remembers you, and sometimes it follows. You didn't stop time again after that. Not once, not ever, but every now and then, in the middle of a crowded street, or a quiet room, or a moment that feels just slightly too still. You feel it, that silence, that layer, waiting, and sometimes, if you look at the wrong place, at the wrong time, you'll see them, standing still, watching, like they're waiting for you to come back,